Dr. Jackie's here, changing life loving you. Yeah, that's the groove, life loving you. Feel the truth, move, life loving you. It's all we do, come on through, it's just for you.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie here, and welcome back to the podcast. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe. Now, we're going to be talking about things that nobody really tells you about marriage. But listen, I got my boots on because I've been on the battlefield. So I've read the books, but I'm not telling you from the perspective of what I've read in a book. I'm talking to you based on what I've lived and what I know. And so hopefully, as a pragmatist, somebody that makes things really simple and gives you actionable steps, hopefully I'm going to be able to break the information down for you so that upon sharing, you're going to be able to, like, first of all, analyze, is this me or is this them? Number two, you're going to figure out what are some of the steps that you need to take to address the issue if it is in your relationship. So the topic is potential versus reality, the burden of unconditional acceptance. Now, we all just want to be loved. I know I want to be accepted for who I am. And it sounds good in theory, but it looks good on paper, but it's hard to take off paper and to live it out. And so I'm just going to read this. In this segment, we explore the tension between the ideal of unconditional love and the harsh reality of relational imbalance. Why? Because unconditional love in some part of the equation is going to include some imbalances. And what that means is that you're going to have to learn to love and to accept your partner for who they are, what they are, and also what they do, as well as what they don't do. This means that you might be left picking up the slack. This acceptance can inadvertently lead to a burden on one partner as they carry responsibilities that aren't shared. And over time, this imbalance can foster resentment, unforgiveness, retaliation, blame, bean counting. You know what bean counting is? That's where you say, well, I did such and such and such and such. What have you done for me lately? Janet Jackson got that down. Sometimes the painful truth is that love without mutual effort, it comes at a steep cost. So let's dive in.
Yes, Doc. One thing that really helped spur this conversation is you showed me that reel from A.R. Bernard talking about we love unconditionally. We love without reasons. And while
No,
that
we love with
we
reasons.
love with
We
reason,
know why we love somebody.
yeah. And you said that that can sometimes accidentally become a barrier to unconditional love, and I never had thought about it that way. And so I wanted to kind of like tease that conversation out because a lot of times we're taught, well, this is a good reason, good reason, good reason. So if you do X, Y, and Z, I should love you. But that how if X, Y, and Z stop happening, just the love kind of has a tendency to disappear
Well,
as
because
well.
you have conditions. You love them because of this and because of that. But what happens when that no longer is?
Mm.
I might have loved my husband because he has a beautiful body, it turns me on. But then when the pot belly comes, then what?
Mm.
Or because he was able to do this. Maybe now because of something physical or whatever, he's no longer able to do that, or he doesn't do that. Then what? So the more reasons you have more expectation. And when those expectations aren't met, guess what happens? People become very unhappy very quickly. This is why I talk about just something that occurred to me in my own relationship. I learned that, and in my practice working with clients, most people are upset about unmet expectations, but moreover, most people marry potential.
Mm.
So they have an expectation that this person told me that they're going to do this one day, they're going to be that, they're going to go here, they're going to build that. And then when it doesn't happen, they become disenchanted. Again, it's another condition or another reason why you love them or why you're putting this investment into them.
Mm.
Unconditional love is different though. I'm just going to love you just because. It is a decision that I'm making and I'm accepting you for who you are right now. If you never change another thing,
Mm.
if you never become another anything, if you don't do the thing that I'm hoping that you will do, you still got all of me.
Mm.
Our tendency is I start doing that back step.
Yeah.
When you don't do this, when you don't do that, when you don't give me this, when you don't become that, I start pausing instead of moving forward into the relationship with you. And there's something about that. When someone is accepted and seen for who they really are, it gives that person the power to transform, to transcend who they currently are.
Mm.
And even when it's not spoken, it's a feeling. You ever notice like you could be in a room and somebody's staring at you and you immediately turn? It's felt. It's undescribable, but you just feel it and know it. It's the same thing when you're being judged. When someone is judging you and they're criticizing you, it makes me think about the Bible, how it talks about how when we talk about people, it's really a tantamount to murder.
Mm.
Because I believe it does something, it sets some things in action in the person's lives that makes it very difficult for them to become. So really the ideal thing, which is what God does for us, he just loves us because
Mm.
we are who we are.
Exactly.
The way that we are, with what we do and don't do,
Mm.
he still just chooses, I'm going to love you no matter what. So the truth is, in terms of the research, many couples say that they have unconditional love as the ultimate ideal. But studies show that when one partner constantly compensates for the other partner, their relationship satisfaction can drop as much as 40%. Now that's steep. That's almost in
I was
half.
about to say, so it sounds like I don't think people understand that what conditional love. Everyone accepts, the good, but it's also the opposite side of it as well.
You
It's
can
like
go ahead and say bad.
that I don't want to trigger anybody, but yeah, the bad side of unconditional love is I'm gonna love you even when you don't. I'm gonna love you even when you don't, and when you show someone that, like you said, it unlocks the true potential that you saw for them to actually become what it is. It's like almost as by me saying I'm not holding you to the standard, it almost enhances them to go beyond the standard.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those people who are like, all right, I've waited, I've given them the chances, and they're still not rising to that standard?
So I just want to remind them, you said unconditional, that's a target. So the target means I'm going to still love you despite, right?
Yeah.
Now here's a quandary. I call it a tightrope when you're moving towards this particular side of something.
Correct.
But then there's another side that if you go too far, it could turn into abuse or neglect, right?
Exactly.
So I feel like this. If you know a person's history, I'll give you an example because I don't want to just talk in the air. You know a person's history, then you understand where they are and why they are where they are. That should give you some sort of compassion as well as patience to accept them for who they are. Case in point, for me and my husband's family, they were not touchy-feely people. It was only the two of them. Their parents were much older when they got married. My family, it was 5 of us plus my 2 parents. That's 7. You were fighting to get a word in edgewise. We fought like cats and dogs, but we made up all the time. We were inseparable. My family was mushy. We did say we love you and that kind of thing. My husband's family didn't. So that's odd for him. It's unusual. It's not common. For me, it's every day, right? So for him to say all the time, I love you, or to even give compliments, it's just something it wasn't second nature to him. So if I understood that, then I can't put all my eggs in a basket. Like I need for him to tell me every time we talk that he loves me or that I look good today, right? Here's the thing about relationships that I think is really important when I talk about particularly marriage or romantic relationships. We have really been taught the wrong thing. We look for that relationship to meet all of our needs and to give us everything that we want. Now I'm trying to find out now, what relationship do you know that's not a romantic one, where the person gives you everything? Let's think about on your job. Let's think about your friends. That's why you got multiple. If you wouldn't have multiple friends if one gave you everything you needed. Let's think about your parents.
There it is.
Do they give you everything that you need? But for some reason, in romantic relationships and in marriage, we expect for this other person to be our everything. Nobody is your everything. Even God knew that it wasn't good for man to be alone, and he gave him a doggone physical partner because of the way he made us. He is everything that we need, but he also knows that there's a socialization that needs to be in this dimension. It can't be spiritual, right?
Yeah.
If otherwise he wouldn't have
made
made
us.
He wouldn't have made Eve, right? Adam and Eve.
So I like that. No one is going to meet your 100% meet you there.
No.
So with that new expectation, how does someone address
Well,
unconditional?
you take what this person is able to give to you. And this is where I talk about becoming a kingmaker or a queen maker. When someone is not where they need to be, but you can see them beyond, grooming them, coaching them, loving them, encouraging them into their next versus demanding and, throwing a tantrum when they don't give you is really key to them getting there. So what you do is you accept where they are, what they're able to give you. You encourage them in the way.
Yeah.
But then if that's a really hardwired need, you need to get that from somewhere else. And please now, don't write to me talking about Dr. Jacquie told you to step out. We're not talking about that. But like I got some girlfriends, girl, I like that new hairstyle. That color, ooh, you doing that, that's hitting different. They'll tell you, you look good, or, I love you. And sometimes you got to be the change that you're looking for. So maybe your ability to say that to that person, even if it means that I need to initiate. I had a client who was telling me, that her husband kind of lags in the bedroom, like she wanted sex more frequently. And I was like, okay, so have you shared that with him? Yeah. But the way that she was brought up, she didn't feel like she should be the person to initiate or to, say that he should just get the little innuendos. There's something to be said about speaking your mind and saying what it is clearly that you need. Remember now, men are wired different. They don't get that subtle communication as well as women do. So you might have to say. Number two, you might have to do and be okay with initiating. Think about it. I initiate, which might not be my first choice, but I get my needs met.
There it is.
Add it up.
Oh, okay. So sounds like what you're talking about is you introduced the word to me a couple of days ago, clandestine communication.
Clandestine
Meaning
communication.
dark, unclear, not direct, not A to B communication. Do you believe that that's a huge barrier to a lot of what people are dealing with like saying, oh, I want my needs, or I feel like this is love, but they're not really signaling that, or they might just keep it to themselves. How do you get over this clandestine communication and communicate clearly?
Well, I think that a lot of women tend to be more clandestine because we romanticize everything. So for us, it's like, a man, if he loves me, he should know and he should pay attention. It's just not the way that they're wired. Physiologically, biologically, they're different. So that's something that your girlfriend is going to be able to do for you more readily than a male might be able to do for you. So clandestine communication is not very effective because you have to assume that the person is going to be able to read your cues. But it's a guarantee if you just forthright say, this is what I'd like. And can you do that for me? Versus, some people like such and such. What do I might. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean that you want to try that now? So now you're engaging another individual, hoping that they pick up on that and that they follow the what do you call them?
The breadcrumbs.
The breadcrumbs. They might be lost in the forest. So I just say speaking clearly, clear communication. Communication is hard enough as it is because when I say an elephant, you see something different in your mind's eye than what I see when I'm saying it. So communication is already not completely precise. So the clearer you can make it, the better you're able to get your desired outcomes.
Perfect. Now I'm about to say the stat, and then we're going to go completely into communication. Research shows that 60% of couples report that imbalance in responsibilities and growth contributes to significant relationship dissatisfaction. So I believe people have, like you said, there's responsibilities or there's beliefs that you come into a relationship with. If I am raised in a traditional household in the South, I have a different ideal of relationship from a one person household in the North.
Right.
And so when it comes down to those responsibilities that, well, I feel like a man should do. And she feels like, well, that's what a woman should do.
And those that imbalance. So listen, let's talk about it real time. When we're talking about imbalances in the relationship, so you just use the example of if the husband doesn't give you compliments or say that I love you all the time.
Yes.
So you might have to work more in that regard to make that an issue that causes growth, to bring it to a place where he or she can grow into it. For me, it was like with my kids. my husband and I differed on the way to raise the kids at a certain age. So he
Mm-hmm.
was a great disciplinarian up until like the age of 12. When they got into their preteens and teens, he felt like they should know. So for me, he stepped back from being the disciplinarian. So guess what? I tried to convince him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can't make Mr. D do what he don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I tried that and it created consternation. I was upset. It created resentment for me. But I realized I can't not do it because the kids need to be disciplined. I don't want unruly kids and I don't want to undermine their future. And so you see how this play on that's not my role. I can't do all of this by myself. I need you to come into agreement with it and that we stand as united front. That's the way it should be done. But my reality was at the age of 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, it wasn't being done that way.
Mm.
So if I'm going to accept him unconditionally as he is, that means that now I got to take up the slack of him not being the disciplinarian. Now I become the sole disciplinarian. Why?
Mm.
Because my kids need to be disciplined. I can't have no roughnecks growing up in my house disrespecting me or not doing what they're told. You understand?
Yes.
So then I had to step in. It's just like the woman who's saying that she had to learn to initiate or she had to say clearly, this is what I want.
Mm.
So you're taking up extra responsibilities or extra activities in the interim while you're giving that person the space to grow into it.
Ooh, and that's unconditional love.
That's unconditional because you're not getting upset and then cutting yourself off from them. So this is what we typically do.
Mm.
When you make me mad now, I'm going to cut off, shut down, back up from my love game.
Mm.
Because really I'm waiting until you give me what I want to make me feel safe or good or approved of enough to now release my love fully back to you.
Ooh.
So that's really what resentment does. When you feel that resentment or when you feel afraid or you thinking like, is this what I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life? Yeah, it might be. If it's unconditional and the kids aren't going to be preteens forever or teenagers forever. So that means you got some hard years where you're going to have to put it in. I love something that the First Lady said, Michelle Obama. She said there were years when I couldn't stand him. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. She just talked about there were some rough years. And I think that this really does make up some of those rough years. When your expectations are not met, the things that you were hoping for or needing to get out of the person, they were unable to give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you cut and run? Thank God I didn't cut and run. Because I'm going to tell you something, I got me a good man.
Amen.
He's not perfect though, but neither are you. Neither am I. So why should I put a burden of impossibilities on somebody? That makes so much sense to me. If I'm not imperfect, I can't for reach it. I expect for, come on. It's that you have to be realistic about it.
Absolutely.
So if I would have cut and ran over my children, now they're grown now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're already married, everything, have children.
Mm-hmm. And now they see the template of how you went through.
But I'd have been done. I'd have been a single mom.
Oh, and that might
This
have
is what I'm
wrecked
saying.
it.
My inability to render unconditional love, it was putting our relationship in a chokehold.
Mm-hmm.
But then I began to realize, like, hey, my kids are going to be gone off to college soon. These issues aren't going to be really issues anymore. So I had to step in there and do what I had to do. So it might have meant a couple of years, several years doing that. But it stopped the tension over the matter. And then guess what happened? He grew into it. So another thing I didn't tell you is that my husband's father died while he was in high school. So I think he saw good parenting up to a certain level. Then he's without his father. So he's never seen it modeled. Think about that. So his whole concept was, I had to learn how to do stuff on my own. Yeah, because you were in your situation. My kids have both their parents. But he'd never seen it modeled because his dad was gone by then. You see?
That's good.
So I had to step back, put that burden on my back, and be willing to step up to the plate and do what needed to be done, but then still accept him and love him. And in that space, he was able to grow that way. Because let me tell you something, discipline, even though they're grown, your discipline turns different. It turns into counsel. It turns into wisdom. It turns into the ability to guide without a strap
That's good.
or without time out. My boys come to my husband for everything. Dad, I'm looking at doing such and such. My plans are I want to move to the Gables, or I want to move to Coconut Grove. These are some ideas that I have. I'm buying another property. So they talk over everything. So his ability to even tell him stuff that's not easy,
Mm.
you know, might have to rock the boat a little bit.
But you gave him the space to become that.
Yeah.
And how do you give couples advice to give their mate space to become the ideal? Because it sounds like it was not easy at all. And it
No,
feels
I've
like,
done it. So I can tell you it's not easy.
yeah,
You have to keep reminding yourself of the place that you've chosen to stand in, which is I'm not going to look at something that's 10% or 20% of my relationship. Now, it's 100%. 80 of it was amazing. But when it came to them doggone children, or can I say children,
cherry.
I was teed off initially. But then I decided this is only like what, 10, 15, at max 20% of my marital satisfaction, my relational satisfaction. But the more I focused on it and made it into this bigger issue, I just decided, I'm going to take it off the table. I'm going to step up. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to grow into it. So then I was able to go back into my 100% or close to 100% satisfaction. Because I ain't going to lie, I never got to 100. Let's keep it 100. I ain't never get quite to 100, but I certainly wasn't at the place where I've lost 40%, 50% of my relational satisfaction.
That's good. That's great. Let's go into the next topic. That was really good information. It's this segment talks about unexpressed needs and unclear communication. We express how individuals resort to passive-aggressive behaviors, communicating indirectly through sarcasm, jokes, vague statements like "I'm fine," and so on and so forth. Surveys indicate that unexpressed needs and passive-aggressive communication can reduce relationship satisfaction by up to 50%.
That's right. And are you shocked?
No.
So here's one thing I notice about people that do that. They're so inward and unable to freely, clearly communicate, but it doesn't change their metric though. They still hold you responsible for understanding them and giving them what they need. So it doesn't change the metric. Like it's like if I were deaf, I would understand that, oh, you can't really
Communicate
sign,
with me.
so
Yeah.
no, they have the same metric though. And so it's not uncommon that you'll have a person like that, be in a relationship with them, and all of a sudden one day they say, you know what, I'm not happy in this relationship, I'm out. And I mean, they'll say it like that, have the bags already ready, and they are out, literally. On a job, they're happy, you see them never complaining, blah, 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 put in their resignation, 2 weeks.
Out of nowhere.
Nowhere. And it's because all of these things, these needs, expectations, were on the inside and just simply unexpressed. Nothing can be fixed unless it's first, you have to admit that it is an issue.
Correct.
Then you at least have to bring the other person into the equation and say, hey, this is an issue.
Correct.
And then you have to work together to find a resolve. Think about it. If you've done none of those things, it's almost irresponsible, unreasonable for you to now feel like you didn't get them from the person and somehow it was unsalvageable, so you got to go.
You didn't even give them a fighting chance.
No opportunity. I have a friend of mine. I noticed that whenever something becomes, lackluster. So in other words, you start a new job, everything's perfect, but you know how it happens. Then all of a sudden people start doing stuff, get on your nerves. Same thing, you're in this new relationship. Oh, she's on point, he's on point, everything is good until it ain't. And I would notice that whenever that would happen, somebody did something that made her mad or offended her, she'd literally pack up. She'd already do it in her mind, already figure out her next steps. So when she's going to tell the person, she's already figured out her next move. She's already moved into them. She's already set the stuff up.
Oh, wow.
And she's on her exit. And so, I told her, because here's the thing, you can't outrun problems. They're going to find you no matter what. Because as long as you're breathing air and you're alive, you're going to encounter problems because life is fraught with them.
Say that you cannot outrun your problems.
No,
you can't
they're peppered throughout life.
You can't new job your problems. You can't new relationship your problems. They're going to follow you.
And again, nothing is perfect. I don't care what job it is. I don't care what relationship it is. everything is fraught with problems and imperfections, right? So I remember she came to me and she was talking to me about some other problem now,
Mm.
and you could see that things were starting to sour a little bit. She was starting to see the unseemly side of things. And it's like, have you talked to the person? And yes, she did mention something to them, maybe like one time.
Mm.
And it was like if there was some pushback, that would be all she would do. No, you got to get in there. You got to roll up your sleeves, and you got to be willing to have sometimes multiple conversations. I remember one time my husband said to me, like, why do we have to keep talking about stuff? Hello? I almost started to say, dumb Dan, because we got to work it out. Talking is key.
Mm-hmm.
Everything happens through a communication. I got to understand how you're seeing this. I got to understand, what are you fearing about this?
Mm-hmm.
What is that you want? What is that you don't want? What are some things that are practical for you to do versus impractical? I can't figure all that out inside of my own one head and not get inside of yours as well. So communication is key with resolve. Any way you spell it.
There was this song that was super viral back in when I was living in Atlanta. She's a runner, she's a track star. She's gonna run away when it gets hard. What do you say to those people who are chronic runners? Like they like, whether through trauma or whatever, they see problems, like, oh, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, it's another form of sabotage, isn't it? So you got to first of all be aware that is your defense mechanism. You run, and then you got to ask yourself, has it worked for you? Because if it hasn't worked for you, you need to stop doing it. Because don't they say that if you keep repeating doing the same thing and expecting a different result but getting the same, all you're doing is burning bridges, breaking relationships, and you're never acquiring the relationship skill set to know how to fix things, because there's no perfect relationship. So listen, I was thinking this the other day. I remember this friend of mine, she says, she recounted some stuff that had happened to her, and she said, I just want you to promise that you'll never hurt me. And I said, you know what? I can promise you something. I'm going to promise you that I will hurt you, that I'm going to get on your nerves, that I'm probably going to offend you from time to time. Never because I did it on purpose, but because I'm imperfect. It's impossible for me not to do it. It's impossible for anyone not to do it. Number two, if you're so afraid of what somebody else is going to do, you create, or you draw to you, you attract to yourself what it is that you focus on. So if you're so focused on people hurting you, doing something to you, guess what's going to happen?
You'll get hurt.
It follows that saying, you look for trouble, you're going to find it. So I told her that. I said, I'm not so concerned about what somebody's going to do to me, because somebody's always going to do something that's going to make you upset. What I'm most concerned about is, what are you going to do once you find out that you hurt me?
Ooh.
Not that. That's the most important part. And to me, that's how you try a relationship. If the relationship hasn't been through anything, it hasn't been tried. But if I can see what you're going to do after you hurt me, that's everything. If you can listen, if you can own up to what you might have done wrong, even if, how you're even communicating you're sorry. Are you really repentant? Because repentance has a look and a sound. Like somebody, well, if I did such, I'm sorry. That's not the sound.
Come on, what does it sound like, Doc? What does it sound like?
I'm really sorry. I really didn't mean to do that. My God. And I can't believe that I hurt you like that. What can I do to make it better?
And I like
We're going to figure that out, because I can't have my girl, hurt.
What can I do?
Not say now. Because words are cheap. Let's go on record with that. Words are too cheap and too easy to say. Is what are you willing to do? And, I remember I had this one lady who was my assistant. I loved her so much. And I remember that we got into a little spat one day. Not anything that I did. She was written up by someone else. And I guess she expected for me
to vouch for her.
When the lady had given her 3 chances. So it was like, no. It's in the manual. It's what it is.
It's the protocol.
Yeah. And so she got mad at me about that. Not the lady that termed her. First she was mad at her. Ultimately, then it became my issue. She never said she was sorry. But she did something out of her monies, which I know weren't vast. She sold into something that was important to me. And so even though she never said it, I understood that with her limits.
That was her way of saying sorry.
and that it was a massive I'm sorry.
That's really good, Doc. You've gotten an uncanny ability to recognize someone else's capacity to communicate with you from your husband, and you even just he never saw it modeled from your friend. She doesn't have the capacity, but to mentally say it, but she's sewing like this. What tips can you give someone on how to see how someone else is communicating?
I think you have to stop thinking about yourself. If you're so captured with how you feel and what you think and what you don't like, you don't have the time or the bandwidth to really focus on why are they doing that? Where must they be right now for them to have said that to me? I think we're so busy being offended, being upset at what they did and what they said that we don't have room to look at the equation of why, where they at, what could be happening to them. And what I learned is that most of what people do when they tell you off and read you and all of that, it's not even about you, it's about them. So I want to put the focus back on you so I can help you to heal and resolve, and then it will resolve the issue that we're having. But if I'm really thinking it's all about me, it's really not. You know, it's really not.
And a relationship can't be all about one person. That's imbalance, right?
Yeah, it is, but that's how we see it. We always frame things up with, they said this and that just pissed, and how dare, and blah, blah, blah. Step back. What did I do first? So you look at is there any responsibility that I can take over this? But what made them do that? Where are they right now? What could they be going through something? Just think about it and just begin to look at the person. And then sometimes what you're going to say to them in response is also going to be very, very different. I might not come, well, I don't like what you said. I might start with, so talk to me. Where are you at right now? What you got going on? I kind of sense that there's some things going on.
You give them the space.
Give them the space, and you'd be surprised. And especially if you don't do it disingenuously, like you're trying to analyze it, be like the big. No, but you're really like, tell me what's up, because you might start with, this is what's been going on with me. Tell me where you're at, and that can help people to open up because you're giving them equal footing. So I don't mean man up on them, and like you're trying to no gaslighting or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, Doc, this has been a great conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything to say to the people who are dealing with being a runner or a track star, dealing with unclear communication or just relationship imbalance? Any closing thoughts?
I just think that the main thing from this conversation is for you to decide what it is. What's your aim? Are you wanting to be in a relationship where you give unconditional and receive unconditional love? That's the first step. And if so, then I've given you some nuggets, I think, that you can kind of plug in and apply. And then you're on your way. Hey, Dr. Jacquie here. I'm your how-to lady. How to do life, how to do love, and how to do you, boo. So click, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more to come.